Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new to my channel, welcome. If you've been following my videos for the past month, you'd all notice that I have been doing the Inktober challenge. What Inktober is an artist's challenge where the idea is that we are supposed to ink in a piece of artwork every day for 31 days in the month of October. I first tried doing Inktober last year, but only made it as far as about 5 pieces in before I just completely flamed out of the project. But this year I decided to make it a point to get through the entire month and complete Inktober properly. As you can see from the slideshow, I pretty much succeeded in that. Although if you're counting, you notice I'll actually have 28 pieces rather than 31. And that's because there was one Tall Tales piece that was rather large that took me about 3 days to ink. But pretty much I was able to succeed in the spirit of Inktober, which is inking every day. So now that I have this challenge behind me and also gave myself a couple of days before doing another video. And now I want to talk about what I learned from Inktober. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if some of you are asking right now, what do you mean, what did I learn from Inktober? I thought the whole point was just to ink every day and do artwork every day. What else could you possibly learn from that? Well, I actually did, and it surprised me as to what I ended up learning from this challenge. The first thing that I learned from doing the Inktober challenge is that it's actually a lot harder than I thought to deliberately do an inked piece every day for 31 days. At first, I thought the hardest thing that I was going to encounter was coming up with 31 ideas to ink in for artwork. But actually, it was the scheduling the time to do the work that was the hardest part. That was the thing that surprised me the most. Coming up with the ideas wasn't even an issue, considering that a lot of these pieces I had penciled out already and all I had to do was ink them. But sitting down and doing the inking and actually making that effort was the hardest part about doing this challenge. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not like I wasn't doing anything or I wasn't doing any other type of artwork. It's just that making the time to ink in these pieces was pretty annoying, actually. I mean, I kept comparing Inktober to actual exercise, actual physical exercise. Like the hardest part of running, even though I enjoy it, the hardest part is actually putting on my running shoes and getting out the door and doing it. So the only thing that I can think of that explains this issue that I came across was the fact that with the exception of the Tall Tales cover, none of the other pieces that I inked for October I need anytime soon. A lot of them were sketches that I had already done for next year actually, and I could have put them off at any time, but because of the challenge of Inktober and I really wanted to get through the challenge the way it was meant, I really made it a point to get these pieces done. But at the same time, because they're not really for anything, it was really difficult for me to build up the urgency outside of it being an Inktober project to get them done. The other thing that I learned from Inktober was that even though I had a lot of the sketches pre-done, it wasn't for the full month, and I found myself still having to come up with pieces to ink for Inktober. And that was actually pretty difficult, coming up with pieces that I could work on for the project. The thing is that that was something that I was anticipating before Inktober. So I had downloaded an app called Sketchbite onto my phone in order to kind of circumvent that problem. But ironically, I never got to use it. Instead, what I did was I was just sketching and drawing pieces that I just wanted to do, even though they weren't images that I would like purposefully come up for prints or anything. Actually, the thing is that most of the pieces that I had pre-sketched, I had done for future prints. And because of that, sometimes I have a hard time now coming up with images, especially if I know, oh, I can't sell this at a convention. Nobody would want this. It's too, whatever. But I decided to use this opportunity for Inktober to sketch out pieces and to ink out pieces that I wouldn't normally do. But for the sake of this project, I was able to do. It was, the most popular piece that I had in the entire project was the Lady Gaga Countess from American Horror Story, and then I had the two pieces from Attack the Block, which if I were to take those to a convention, I would be surprised if anybody would recognize where they were from. So I just said, you know what, this is a project. This should be the point of the project to take advantage and do artwork I wouldn't normally do because they're not sellable in a sense. So the last thing that I learned from Inktober, which I'm going to keep it at this because I don't want this video to go too long, is how much I actually didn't like my Staedtler pigment liners as much as I thought I would. Now, when I do my regular pieces for my comic book art or commissions, I usually use the Koh-i-Noor Rapidograph technical pens, which are the refillables. And if you noticed on one of my previous videos, they're very messy. They're impractical to take to conventions. So what I've been doing is been trying to find liners, multi-liners that I can take to conventions without having to deal with the mess of working with ink and rapidographs. So this time around, I decided to use the Staedtler pigment liner for all the pieces for Inktober, again with the exception of the Tall Tales piece, which I used my refillable rapidographs on. And even though they started out really well, after doing so many pieces, as the ink began to wear out in the pens, I found myself having to press harder to get ink to come out of the pens, and they started hurting my hands, and they started just not having the line weight that I was interested in getting. Even though there are 4 pens, in the end, I ended up using only 2 of them. Either the number 3 and the number 7, or the number 5 and the number 7, depending on the piece. And what I would do is that I would use the number 7. For some reason, it started having a thinner nib than what I started out with, so I would have to go over lines a lot just to get the thickness that I would get in one pass if I was using my rapidographs. I still have a bunch of these to use, so it's not like I'm going to throw out the pens, but at least now I know how they work, especially if I'm going to use them a lot. And I might have to cycle through pens, or at least vary my pens depending on how much artwork I have to work on, convention work, so that they don't end up hurting my hands. I wouldn't recommend it, but then again, I have yet to find multi-liners that I'm truly happy with. So at least with Inktober, I was able to test out these pens and find out that I'm not really crazy about them. So once they run out, I'm going to see if I can find something else to replace them with. So that's pretty much it for Inktober 2015. I'm glad I did it. I'm definitely going to do it next year. And I'm still surprised at how exhausted I was after it finished. It was like a huge weight off my shoulders, but at the same time, I knew that that was more indicative of something else I really have to take care of. That I'm not that I feel that I'm not working harder or I need to work harder at my artwork, but scheduling is definitely something I need to concentrate more. And yeah, and actually just making more time for artwork every day in order to improve my craft. It was very eye-opening, but at the same time fun to do because I got all this artwork done. And yeah, I think what I need to do is I need to look for other challenges similar to this. And before I end this, don't forget to like and subscribe. And tell me down below in the comments which was your favorite piece out of the entire Inktober challenge and why. So I hope you liked the video. I hope you found it informative, and maybe you'll try Inktober on your own next year. And I'll see you on the next video. Bye.